0300 hours. A U.S. Army recovery convoy holds position in the highlands under blackout discipline. Engines idle low, barely audible over wind-pushing fog through the pass. The air is cold, layered with diesel and dust. Wet asphalt glints faintly under filtered headlight slivers. Every sound feels measured, logged, accountable. She sits in the lead vehicle. Captain, convoy commander, authorized by battalion operations. A folded map rests across her lap, marked with grease pencil coordinates. Her headset mic is cracked but still live. Behind her, drivers and gunners wait for a single order to advance. Liability sits with her, and she knows it. One call moves 4 trucks, 12 soldiers, and every piece of encrypted gear they protect. Visibility falls under 100 yards. The convoy creeps forward in near silence. Brake lights flare red inside the fog, then vanish again. Rotor wash fades somewhere overhead, a support bird repositioning. Too far to help if the grid is wrong. Command silence holds steady. Radio static pulses twice between transmissions. Distorted, but recognizable. Her channel to operations cuts out for 3 seconds. Fuel window drops below 1 hour. She adjusts the map light, eyes on the route tracing the valley floor. One wrong coordinate could expose the recon team still missing beyond that ridge. She checks the log again. Dust moves through headlight beams like smoke. A clipped voice from the rear vehicle confirms formation intact. Convoy spacing compresses without order. She breathes once, steady, and reaches for the mic. No margin left for error. Her voice stays even. Her glove touches the transmit key, waiting for confirmation that never comes. This is where it starts. Fog still moves across the convoy line. Headlights dim to slivers. Engines idle steady under canvas covers. Vibration low and constant. Dashboard instruments glow faintly green. Her voice remains the only stable element in the circuit, calm and procedural. She checks the mission log, map light flickering across her gloved hand. Signal clarity drops again, but her voice stays level. Stay with the mission. If you track these operations, record your location now, confirm your sector in the comments, and subscribe so your position remains logged for review. Accountability depends on every observer doing their part. Night in the highlands holds steady under cloud cover. The air sits near freezing, heavy with fog pooling between ridgelines. A single army convoy moves slow across the pass, headlights hooded, beams directed low. Radios stay under discipline. No chatter. Just the rotation of wheels on slick pavement and the constant pulse of diesel engines idling beneath the cold. Exhaust drifts under the fog, trapped close to the surface like mist over water. The operation is called Checkpoint Echo, a recovery run. Objective: locate and extract a stranded recon element before dawn. Time is measured not by hours, but by the steady pressure of procedure. Reports due, fuel logged, comms verified. The convoy advances on a narrow 2-lane road, cut into the mountainside, shoulders soft from rain earlier in the night. Every turn exposes a new layer of fog. The road drops steeply to the left, climbs again into dark, unlit ridges ahead. Visibility drops below 75 yards. Captain Morgan Hale commands the convoy. She sits in the lead vehicle, posture forward, gloved hands resting near the radio panel. Her rank carries full authority for the Element 3 trucks, 1 support Humvee, 12 soldiers. Staff Sergeant Kincaid manages forward security. Specialist Rivera handles communications relay. Sergeant Ross maintains rear spacing and checks light discipline. All 3 wait for Hale's signal before any change in formation. Her liability is total. Every pause, every acceleration, every coordinate must be logged and justified up the chain to battalion operations. The cabin interior glows faint green from dashboard lights. A clipboard rests against the center console, lined with grease pencil roots and check marks. A dog-eared topographic map sits folded on the dash, its edges soft from use. Beside it, a half-empty thermos of coffee leans against the radio handset. A cracked plastic compass hangs from the mirror, tapping faintly against glass whenever the truck shifts over uneven ground. Hale works the problem one factor at a time. Terrain, timing, comms, integrity, crew, fatigue. Her tone remains even. Every transmission deliberate. Signal delay adds 3 seconds to every transmission. Outside, the convoy hums in rhythm. Brake lights cut through fog like muted red pulses. The lead truck's taillights cast faint halos across the slick asphalt. Each driver maintains 10-yard spacing, guided more by instinct than sight. The wind slides down from higher elevation, pushing against canvas truck covers, pressing dust against metal panels. Rotor noise echoes faintly over the ridge, a distant support bird repositioning south. No visual confirmation, just the trace of movement far above the cloud deck. Command repeats the same grid twice. Hale notes the discrepancy without comment. Her eyes track the grease pencil mark against the printed coordinate on her map. The difference is minor, half a mile, maybe less, but enough to register. She logs it by habit. One quick note in the margin beside the fuel record. Routine detail. Nothing urgent. She lifts the handset again, confirms convoy speed, and releases the transmit key. Static answers her back, fractured but stable. Fuel reserve slips under half. The road narrows again near a drainage cut. Gravel slides under tires, scattering into the ditch line. Staff Sergeant Kincaid calls up a quick terrain check. Tone clipped but calm. No obstruction. Surface intact. Hale acknowledges. The radio crackles once before clearing. The convoy holds its pace, averaging 20 miles per hour. The next waypoint lies 3 miles ahead. She glances at her watch, 0330 hours. Enough time to reach the valley floor before light. Enough time, if the route stays clear. Visibility drops again, this time under 50 yards. The fog thickens. Silver gray under the muted glare of headlights. Hale's field of view shrinks to the curve of the road and the faint blur of reflective paint along the guardrail. Inside the cabin, the hum of the engine merges with wind noise seeping through window seals. Rivera's voice comes low through the headset. Command confirms data feed steady. Hale acknowledges. Copy. Maintain radio silence except for status change. Rivera logs the response. Procedure stays tight. Fuel window narrows to 45 minutes. Every soldier in the convoy knows the rhythm by heart. Checklists replace conversation. Each mile gained is reported, time-stamped, entered into log. The major at battalion operations monitors from a warm tent 2 valleys away, reviewing progress over a secure channel. The chain remains intact. Major to captain, captain to element, element to ground truth. Nothing moves outside that sequence. Hale trusts it because procedure leaves no room for improvisation, but she still cross-verifies coordinates by hand, tracing the pencil line over the printed contour map each time the system confirms a waypoint. The route looks clear on paper. If faint rattle sounds from under the dash, loose wiring brushing metal, Hale ignores it. She glances toward the thermos, lifts it briefly, drinks. The coffee tastes burned, but it cuts the fatigue setting in behind her eyes. The convoy steadies on another incline. Outside, the mountain opens to a wide, flat stretch. The fog breaks momentarily, revealing the faint outline of a ridgeline 200 yards distant. The shape looks uneven, darker than expected. She checks the map again. The elevation marks match. No hazard reported in this sector. Command transmits routine update. All elements proceed. No deviation authorized. Hale copies the order. Her hand rests near the radio mic, thumb tracing the chipped edge of the plastic. She checks mirrors, gauges, instruments. Everything reads nominal. The needle on the fuel gauge trembles near the quarter mark. Her notebook sits open on the seat beside her, one page filled with time-stamped notations in block lettering. The log tells its own story. Precise, ordered, accountable. Convoy spacing tightens without order. She keys the mic. Quick correction. Adjust intervals. Maintain 10 yards. The trailing vehicles ease back into position, brake lights flaring and fading through fog. Hale exhales once, steady. Her voice stays calm, professional. The moment passes. Procedure absorbs the deviation. The convoy keeps rolling. Outside, wind pressure shifts. Moisture beads along the side window, forming streaks of cold water cutting through the dust film. Signal distortion reappears in the feed. Hale taps her headset, slight static in her left ear. Rivera adjusts frequency, clears it. Line stable now. He reports, "Copy." She answers. She glances again at the dashboard compass, still swinging lightly on its cord. North alignment wavers by a few degrees, small enough to ignore, but she notes it. Another margin recorded. Another potential variable buried in routine paperwork. Rotor sound fades completely beyond the ridge. She looks once toward the dark horizon, then back to the map spread under dim light. Her pencil traces the next curve of the road, the path descending toward the recovery zone. Everything checks out. Command believes the route is open. Sensors confirm terrain passable. The convoy moves again at ordered speed, silent but coordinated. Visibility stabilizes at 100 yards. For a moment, it feels routine. Perfect synchronization between men, machines, and data feeds. Every variable appears accounted for. Every control holds. Then her display flickers. A minor glitch. The GPS refresh stalls half a second behind the radio confirmation. Hale blinks. Refocuses. The discrepancy clears itself almost instantly. She makes a brief note sync lag observed, non-critical. One line in a log that no one else will read tonight. She sets the pencil down, folds the clipboard closed, and looks forward through the windshield. The fog ahead glows faint red where the next set of brake lights catches the curve. Her headset hums with static as the major's voice comes through. Proceed. Recovery window. Confirmed. Maintain schedule. Hale answers clearly. Copy. Moving. She presses the throttle, engine deepening in tone. The convoy pushes into the next stretch of darkness. Somewhere inside the static, the first warning hum repeats. A line of data just out of sync with the terrain. Small, precise, forgettable. That's where the first fracture begins. The convoy advances deeper into the Highland Pass. The fog thickens as the road narrows to a single lane cut between rock and drop. Engines grind low in second gear, their sound flattened by the cold air. Brake lights blink red through the haze like slow heartbeats, vanishing and reappearing without rhythm. Temperature drops near freezing. The windshield fogs from engine heat, wiped clear by gloved hands between transmissions. Every few seconds, the static in her headset spikes, then clears again. Visibility falls below 50 yards. Captain Morgan Hale sits forward in her seat, posture square, attention split between the terrain ahead and the console indicators. Her compass glows faint red in the low light. A cracked pen clipped to her sleeve catches the glow each time she moves her arm. She reads the route again from the clipboard on her knee, tracing the grease pencil grid line under her finger. The convoy's distance to objective reads 3 miles. Her fuel gauge edges near the quarter mark. The major's voice filters through the distortion. Continue forward. Recovery point confirmed. Maintain schedule. Hale copies the order. Steady and neutral. Copy. Continuing. The words feel procedural, logged more than spoken. Command repeats the same coordinates again. She compares the transmission against her map. The numbers don't align perfectly, off by several hundred yards from the last confirmed update. She doesn't note it aloud yet. Instead, she writes it down, slow and deliberate, pressing the pencil hard enough to leave an imprint on the damp paper. Staff Sergeant Kincaid's voice comes through from the lead security truck. Captain, terrain's tightening. No shoulder clearance. Hale checks her watch. 0400 hours. She acknowledges, Voice calm. Copy. Maintain interval. A gust of wind shoves fog sideways, revealing the edge of a washed-out culvert below the road. She measures the turn visually, then signals her driver to ease left. Signal delay extends to 5 seconds. Each transmission now overlaps the one before it, as if command is speaking from a few seconds in the past. Hale keeps her tone level, marking the lag time in the margin beside the previous coordinate note. Her gloves leave faint moisture on the clipboard surface. The pen skips, hesitates, then resumes its thin gray line. Rivera at comms checks in, interference pattern holding steady. Ma'am, possible terrain bounce. Hale answers, noted. The words carry weight even when she says little. Every discrepancy becomes a point of record, no judgment attached. Rear vehicle loses radio contact for 1 minute. She listens to the dead channel, the hiss of static filling her left ear. Then it clears. Ross's voice returns, clipped and precise, re-established. No casualties. Mechanical lag on hydraulics, already addressed. Hale acknowledges again. Copy. Maintain spacing. Her breathing stays even, steady enough to match the rhythm of the engine. The smell inside the cabin mixes oil, diesel, and damp canvas. Every sound is a metric. Gear rattle through chassis. Metallic ping from cooling exhaust. The soft click of the clock advancing 1 minute closer to dawn. Fuel status drops to 20%. The convoy climbs another incline, tires slipping slightly on wet asphalt. The road leans into a turn without guardrail. Hale leans forward, eyes scanning the fog for reflective markers. The wind presses harder against the truck frame. She keys the mic again. Calm as before. Convoy. Echo. 1 to command. Request coordinate reconfirmation. The Major's response comes delayed, a half beat behind her transmission. Coordinates verified. Proceed direct to recovery grid. She glances at her map again. The coordinates drift further east, away from the original route plotted hours earlier. Hale presses her lips together, notes it once more, and writes in the margin command confirmation inconsistent with map orientation. No commentary follows. The act of logging it is enough. Her onboard GPS shows grid mismatch of 200 yards. Inside her vehicle, the dashboard clock ticks loud enough to fill the silence. Each second lands like a reminder of the narrowing window. 3 miles on paper feels shorter than what the terrain delivers. Kincaid reports again from the lead truck. Surface degraded. Recommend partial stop for inspection. Hale hesitates. The Major's order echoes still in her ear. Maintain schedule. She measures the risk. Time versus safety. Procedure binds her decision, not instinct. Negative on full stop. Reduce speed 5 miles per hour. Confirm tire condition. It's the compromise between caution and compliance. She writes the decision down before moving on. Accountability recorded in ink. Command link flickers twice, then stabilizes. The convoy presses forward. The air grows thinner, colder. The breath from the driver fogs the windshield again. Hale wipes the inner glass with her sleeve, watching faint condensation swirl under the dashboard light. The compass needle trembles slightly, as if uncertain which way north lies under the interference. Her headset emits faint feedback, high-pitched, pulsing every 10 seconds. Rivera speaks up again. Interference increasing. Request permission to switch channel. Negative. She answers. Hold frequency until command authorizes alternate. Another note in her log comms degradation persists. No authorization to change. Visibility falls to 40 yards. Brake lights flare close, then fade as spacing corrects. Hale steadies her breathing, counting seconds between visual contacts. The terrain dips, pulling the convoy into a shallow basin surrounded by ridges. The sound changes, wind replaced by echo. The truck's enclosed in cold air that mutes the engines into low vibration. The driver shifts gear, torque rising. The vibration comes through the floorboard and into her boots. Hale places a steadying hand on the dashboard. Fingers, near the compass, swinging under its dim red glow. Fuel reserve slips toward the danger line. The Major's next message cuts through static like a fractured signal. Convoy. This is command. Confirm position on recovery route. Hale's tone stays even. Command. Position grid. Alpha 4-3. Requesting verification. Silence follows for 5 full seconds. Then, confirmed. Continue direct route. Recovery signal remains active. She repeats it back by protocol. Rivera's reply comes low. Ma'am, data uplink doesn't match. Our telemetry feed reads south deviation. Hale acknowledges. Tone unbroken. Log it. Maintain course. Another line entered. Another inconsistency buried in procedure. Command's voice fades, replaced by faint background chatter. Static increases, layered with partial words she can't place. Rivera filters channels but finds nothing clean. Kincaid calls again, his tone sharpened by focus. Captain, slope ahead, narrowing to single vehicle width. Recommend stagger formation. Hale assesses, checks mirrors, confirms spacing, and authorizes stagger. Execute stagger formation. Maintain interval on my signal. Brake hiss cuts through the fog. The smell of overheated metal seeps in. Her driver glances toward her, awaiting the next command. She gives a small nod. Calm, professional, deliberate. The moment holds. Signal interference peaks at 80%. Each movement feels slower now, heavier, as if the air itself resists progress. The trucks lean slightly into the curve, tires clawing for grip on the wet grade. One misstep, and the entire column could stall on the incline. Hale keeps her eyes on the dim reflection of brake lights through mist. Her log fills line by line, handwriting compressed but legible. Observed multiple command delays. Route data inconsistent. She adds the timestamp 0440 hours. Procedure first. Emotion later. Her face remains unreadable in the glow of instrument lights. Command confirms previous coordinates without adjustment. Hale tilts her head, listens carefully to the transmission. She reads it back and finds the difference a missing digit in the grid sequence. Small, but real. She circles it on the map. A slow breath leaves her lungs, visible in the cold air. Orders stay firm. Conditions don't. The words come out low, measured, almost to herself. She refocuses, scanning the road. The convoy continues to move under her direction. No one questions the signal. No one outside her cabin knows the alignment has slipped. Fuel gauge falls under 15%. The radio crackles again. Ross from the rear vehicle reports hydraulic drag worsening, requesting permission to halt for inspection. Hale denies it. Steady voice. Negative. Hold position. No stops in the pass. She glances at the ridge ahead, barely visible. Just a darker patch of gray against darker sky. Each yard gained feels like holding ground against unseen friction. The fog's thickness hides distance, turning the road into a tunnel of uncertainty. She notes the request, denial, and reason in her logbook, without looking down. Signal distortion reaches continuous phase. She knows what that means. Network interference beyond normal terrain impact. The data feed on her console flickers once, then freezes. Coordinates stall, refresh, then display new numbers. The drift widens again, 200 yards off original path, trending east by south. Hale feels it more than she reacts to it. Her posture doesn't shift. Her voice doesn't raise. She makes one quiet note. Grid deviation observed beyond margin. Source unverified. The handwriting is tight and even. Wind gusts strike from the right, rocking the vehicle slightly. The compass hanging from the mirror swings wide, then settles again, pointing 1 degree off north. Hale steadies it with her hand, eyes narrowing slightly. The next turn comes without warning, a blind curve into denser fog. She gives a soft order to her driver. Reduce to 10 miles per hour. The engine tone drops. The vehicles behind follow suit. Headlights dim shapes through vapor. Rivera murmurs. Telemetry feed now conflicting with command uplink. Hale answers. Copy. Maintain transmission logs. Every instruction recorded. Every deviation accounted for. Visibility holds at 35 yards. The convoy pushes into the final stretch before the valley mouth. The ridgelines above disappear completely into fog. Radio chatter distorts into fractured syllables. The soundscape narrows to wind, static, and the rhythmic grind of tires on wet surface. Inside her vehicle. Hale reviews every note she has written since the last confirmation. Each inconsistency forms a quiet pattern. Minor, deniable, but real. She glances at her compass again, at the map, at the clock ticking 1 minute past 0500 hours. Her onboard GPS jumps position without command input. For a second, the display shows their marker over open terrain, hundreds of yards off any mapped road. Then it corrects itself. She looks at Rivera, who shakes his head. It's the signal, he says, too quietly to reassure. Hale nods once, then reaches for her log. Noted. She pauses for a single breath, then leans forward, eyes narrowing toward the fog ahead. The red glow of brake lights from Kincaid's truck vanishes again, swallowed by the gray. Static builds into a continuous tone before fading back to silence. Hale doesn't flinch. She writes her final entry of the sequence. Confirmed anomaly. Position data integrity compromised. Continuing per command order. She places the clipboard flat on her knee and steadies it with one gloved hand. Outside, the road descends toward the valley. The curve ahead disappears entirely beneath the fog. She exhales through her teeth, low and calm. Something in the pattern no longer matches. She feels it, notes it, and marks it for record. The convoy moves forward into the narrowing pass. Pre-dawn gray filters through fog, faint light touching the ridgeline. The convoy crawls forward on unstable ground, engines low, tires grinding across wet gravel. The wind shifts direction, blowing cold air through the pass. Inside the lead vehicle, Captain Morgan Hale watches the instruments. The digital grid on her screen shows their position offset more than 200 yards east of the mapped route. She verifies it twice, then compares against her paper chart. The error is confirmed. What had looked like signal drift is now a falsified feed. She writes the time in her logbook, 0510 hours. Her handwritten log confirms deviation initiated at 0510 hours. The fog lifts slightly, revealing uneven terrain ahead. She scans the display again. Expression neutral. Every coordinate sent by command leads toward open valley instead of the recovery zone. The falsified route would place the convoy inside dead ground, surrounded by higher ridges. She doesn't say the word trap. She writes, relay compromise suspected, correction in progress. Then she keys the mic. Command. This is Convoy Echo 1. Request verification on current grid Alpha 4-3. Static fills the headset. A long hiss under the hum of the engine. After 8 seconds, the reply returns. Echo 1. Confirmed. Proceed. The line ends there. No clarification. No cross-check. Command frequency locks for 8 seconds. She exhales once, then turns to Rivera at comms. We're holding position for manual crossfix. Recalculate based on terrain markers. Her tone is steady. Procedure tight. Rivera nods, switching to local navigation mode. Hale unfolds the paper map, sets the radio handset on top of it, and lines up her compass bearing with the next contour line west. The vibration from nearby engines makes the compass needle tremble, but her eyes stay fixed on the reading. Westward alignment matches her original plotted path. The feed has been wrong for more than a mile. She notes that in writing, ink smudging from moisture on the paper. Signal quality stabilizes as terrain elevation drops. Kincaid calls from the lead truck. Captain, front clearance narrowing. Visibility 20 yards, maybe less. Hale keys her mic. Hold formation. Stand by for route adjustment. She does not mention the data error. To the convoy. The mission remains standard. Her tone remains the anchor. She rechecks the dash clock. 0512 hours. Fuel gauge near critical. 15 minutes of idle time left before reserve. She taps the gauge once, verifying it hasn't stuck. Then she calls rear spacing, Ross, confirm distance, 10 yards and holding. He answers. His voice sounds steady, unaware of what she's seen on the display. Fuel clock hits 15 minutes remaining. The fog thins slightly as the road angles downward. The surface changes from pavement to compact gravel. The vehicles ahead shift gears, diesel engines surging in short bursts. Wind carries grit across metal, scraping faintly against the doors. Hale logs another entry. Manual correction in progress. Convoy maintaining reduced speed, awaiting command verification. She waits 5 seconds, then 10. No response. The headset stays quiet except for low static. Rivera mutters, "Transmission delay at full sync loss." Hale looks up. "Switch to secondary relay." He nods, adjusts frequency. The static clears momentarily, then resets clean. For 1 second, clarity returns to the channel. Major repeats prior order with no situational update. Echo 1, this is command. Proceed to grid Alpha 4-3 immediately. Confirm compliance. Hale listens without expression. She presses the transmit key. Command. Echo 1 copies. Conducting terrain check. Will advise. She releases the key, disconnecting before a reply returns. Her log entry reads, "Command direction acknowledged. Local conditions require reroute. No emotion in the handwriting. Only procedure." She shifts her focus to the windshield, where the fog curls in ribbons across the dim pre-dawn light. The convoy's brake lights pulse against the haze, faint red halos fading in and out. Convoy rear element regains contact range. Kincaid calls up again. "Captain, we're hitting the cut at the ravine mouth. 1 lane open." Hale answers. "Copy. Adjust formation. Prepare to pivot west at marker Delta 7. The words sound routine, but the effect is decisive. Her decision redirects the entire convoy through an alternate path that loops behind the compromised grid. Rivera verifies terrain clearance on analog feed. Path viable. He confirms. Hale replies, "Execute." The vehicles ahead begin to angle left, headlights carving thin lines through fog. Tires slip once, catch again, and settle into the incline. The rear element follows without pause. Hale lifts her logbook, records the change. Deviation initiated. Terrain-based route override. Battalion operations notified. Command frequency cuts out for 10 seconds. Her driver watches her carefully. "Captain, confirmation from ops." "Not yet." She replies. Her tone is flat, factual. "Maintain bearing 275. Keep speed at 15. She keys the mic again. Echo 1 to command. Deviation in progress to avoid terrain hazard. The static answers in bursts, no words returning. Rivera logs the transmission manually. Hale folds the map once more, presses it under the radio, and grips the dash as the vehicle jolts over uneven ground. The compass hanging from the mirror swings wide, then settles toward west. The flickering dashlight reflects across the damp windshield like a signal repeating itself. Her handwritten log confirms transmission at 0520 hours. The convoy climbs briefly, then descends into a lower ravine. Fog thins under the wind shift. Hale looks ahead. The path curves gently west, parallel to the falsified route but outside the hazard line. Through the headset, faint rotor noise returns overhead, the sound of loitering air support repositioning. The comms distortion that plagued them all night begins to clear. Rivera checks the board. Signal stabilization improving. Feed returning normal. Hale nods. Logging again. Interference cleared upon deviation. Every entry builds a record command order. Field condition. Her correction. Proof of necessity. Signal quality stabilizes as terrain elevation drops. Kincaid's voice comes through, tone quiet. Captain, visual on recovery marker. Thermal contact West Ridge, 100 yards. Hale glances at her compass, then the map. The new heading puts them behind the site, unseen and protected by terrain elevation. Copy. Hold short until confirmation. She keys the mic once more. Command, this is Echo 1. Recovery element in sight. Grid coordinates verified via manual reference. The Major's voice replies seconds later. Irritation masked as authority. Echo 1. Previous coordinates were accurate. Do not deviate without clearance. Hale answers calm, factual. Deviation already executed. Recovery successful. Full report to follow. Major repeats prior order with no situational update. No emotion enters her tone. She opens her logbook, writes the closing line of this phase. Convoy rerouted through alternate terrain to prevent exposure. Correction logged for accountability. The sound inside the cab changes. Diesel engines downshift. Brakes. Hiss. Gear clatter steadies as the column halts behind cover. Rotor wash trembles through the convoy line. The sky above begins to pale into muted blue. The fog pulls back from the ridge, thinning into mist. Every movement outside slows. The radios go quiet except for background hum. Fuel clock registers 10 minutes reserve. Hale removes one glove, picks up the radio handset, and records her final field entry in clear tone. This is Captain Morgan Hale. Convoy Echo 1. Manual reroute executed at 0520 hours due to data integrity failure. Command notified. Threat area voided. All personnel accounted for. Awaiting verification of safe zone status. Her voice remains steady, each word precise. The recording clicks off. She returns the handset to its mount beside the folded map and closes the logbook over damp pages. Correction becomes command. For a brief moment, the fog parts entirely. The convoy sits in silence, engines idling under thin light. On her dash, the compass holds true. The display recalibrates, coordinates now matching terrain. Hale's eyes narrow slightly, then relax. The falsified feed no longer controls the route. Procedure reasserts itself. The risk is contained. She writes the final notation in her log. Threat mitigated. Evidence secured. The page fills, then stops. No celebration. No conclusion beyond fact. The convoy is safe, and the record stands complete. Morning breaks over the ridge in muted gold. The fog that defined the night burns away in thin threads, revealing tire marks etched into wet gravel. The convoy idles in low gear, engines humming steady under the first light. Exhaust rises in slow spirals, catching sun across the hood of the lead vehicle. The air feels heavier now, but calm. No pressure, no alarm, only the residue of movement settling into order. Radio traffic returns to normal protocol. Captain Morgan Hale sits inside the cab, logbook closed, her initials visible in faint pencil on the cover. The map lies folded precisely on the dash, a symbol of procedure restored. Her gloves rest beside it, edges damp from use. The radio handset stays powered, but silent. Across the line, soldiers move with practiced rhythm, checking gear, marking positions, finishing what the night delayed. Their voices stay low, contained within structure. Command acknowledgement received at 0600 hours. The Major's voice comes over the channel, confirming the reroute as justified under operational necessity. No reprimand, no excess praise, just confirmation that the action was correct, lawful, and documented. Staff Sergeant Kincaid reports recovery complete, perimeter secure, fuel stable. Hale writes one last note in the margin of her log: deviation resolved, mission integrity preserved. Then she closes the book again. No further comment required. Convoy reports full personnel accountability. Wind moves faint debris along the road. Metal ticks as cooling engines release stored heat. The early light glints off puddles and mirrors. reflecting a field that looks neutral again. No crisis, no distortion, only process. Hale rests her hand on the map once more, aligning the fold edges with care. The system holds because procedure held. Discipline is its own proof. Justice here is recorded, traceable, and complete. Engines tick softly as they cool, metal contracting under the last of the night air. The convoy rests in formation, fog thinning around the ridge. Faint daylight reflects off the mud where boot prints mark each movement, 20 yards from the lead truck. The captain stands beside her staff sergeant, reviewing the map spread over the hood. 2 routes drawn in pencil, 1 ordered, 1 executed, both lawful, only 1 safe. Command review is already scheduled for 0800 hours. Her open logbook shows every entry timed, signed, and verified. The radio hums faintly, background static blending with distant rotor noise. Each transmission from earlier is preserved on record, ready for review. The moral question now shifts from her to the viewer. Procedure or protection, you decide. If the same coordinates came to you, wrong but stamped as official, would you follow the order or correct it on your own? Answer in the comments. Daylight settles fully across the lot. The convoy stands in a clean line, metal surfaces drying under the sun. Air hums with quiet radio traffic and the low churn of diesel idle blending into wind across asphalt. At the operations table, the major signs the final debrief. The captain initials each log page beside him, her staff confirming entries. The binder closes with a firm latch. Procedure complete. All vehicles report secure and cold. A clipboard seals inside a weatherproof bag, stacked with the others awaiting transport. The flag at the far perimeter moves lightly in the breeze. The sound of discipline replaces the sound of crisis. This operation, like everyone before it, ends in documentation and accountability. Mission recorded. Review complete. If you follow this channel for verified field accounts, confirm with a like, secure your subscription, and stand by. The next mission file is already open.